So I want to go ahead. We have our other guest with us,
Okay.
Dan Roth. I'm very excited to have him with us. We're going to go ahead and bring him on because this is a great opportunity to start talking about another type of diversity. Hi, Dan.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Perfect.
And sorry, I got my little airplane headset on today. I had some technical issues, so I look like a pilot today. Oh, he's got his ready too. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, so it's funny, since I've been doing these, I have like a full-on podcast microphone. I have my little one here, and then I have my headset. So any situation that I have, like, I'm ready for it.
I do that too. I have like 6 pieces of equipment. I'm like, okay, what do I need today? Because I do my show and other people's as well. So I'm right there with you. That's funny. And you should be prepared. That's good.
I mean, when you get invited on somebody's show, it's a big responsibility. It's a great ask. Mm-hmm. It's presenting a platform. I think this one specifically is really impactful because we're talking about diversity, whether it's racial diversity, whether it's neurodiversity, and all of these things have such a strong voice, not just in the current state of our economy, but going back for hundreds of years since we started as the United States. And that's something that gets lost a lot. So I'm excited to be here, and I've been excited and happy to listen to the conversation so far.
Thank you. And I do want to point something out. I shared a quote from Martin Luther King a couple of days ago, and I feel like that's almost a cliche to share his quotes sometimes because so many people do. But it was a quote about how there can't be an outsider in America. We're all Americans. This is it. We're it. We're the group. There's not a them and us. It's us. This is it. There can't be an outsider. And we've kind of forgotten that. This equality and justice for all has just kind of been like, if we don't feel like you're important, then to you. And I don't want to get into a lot of politics, but that does carry over into the workplace. And I've seen it. And it broke my heart when I really got into recruiting. And I'd seen a little bit of this before when I was doing hiring manager stuff, but when I really got into recruiting and started working with other companies, it really broke my heart how many people would say things like, I don't want a Black person. I don't want an old person. I don't want a gay person. I don't want a Hispanic person. I need somebody that speaks English. And what they meant by that was, I don't want an accent. When I got down to the crux of it, they didn't want an accent. And it's gross. It's really gross. And it happens all the time. And I mean, every recruiter I know has these stories. Every HR person I know has stories about crazy things hiring managers have said to them. So it's very real, and it hurts me. So I can only imagine how it feels to other people, that are having these things said. And I want to talk to you, Dan, about, first of all, real quick, sorry, let's have your bio. I nearly forgot I know your bio, but so I nearly forgot it, but what's your bio? Share with us a little bit.
Oh God, I hate talking about myself. So I've spent the last 15 years between media, telecom, and healthcare, and really, as a result of the pandemic, was looking for ways to change my outlook, change my future. So I came on LinkedIn. I started branding myself. I stood out for the virtues that I felt were important to me. And through that, I decided that a career in recruitment was really what I loved and what I wanted to do. So for the last, I looked at this yesterday. I thought I'd been doing it a lot longer. It's really only been since January that I've been posting. And I have created a bunch of platforms, both for myself and others, that have really helped a ton of people get jobs. And it's that providing of hope in society today that we so need. And it's not about what you look like or where you're from, because I get people from Africa, I get people from Asia, I get people from Canada, Mexico. It's about what can you provide as a job seeker, and what can you provide as an individual that's going to give that value add.
Right. And I want to talk. So that's what true diversity is about, right? It doesn't matter. You and I have talked about this too, Jabray. It doesn't matter what's out here, right? It's just, or even if you have a physical impairment or if you're handicapped, anything like that, it does not matter. It's what can you bring to the table? That's it, period. There's nothing else that matters when you're doing a job search. You don't need to have a young person, an old person, a gay person, a straight person, a black person, a white person, neurodiverse, non-narrative. It's what unique characteristics can they bring to you. And I like to seek out different. That's how I start my hiring process. Okay, I've got a bunch of this. What matters? What new thing do I need? What new characteristics? What new mindset? What new skill set do I need? That's kind of how I look at it. And Dan, so I know you and I have talked about you are neurodiverse. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means that neurologically speaking, you're different than other people. So that can mean autism, it can mean ADHD, it can mean all kinds of things. So, and that's not something that's visible, right? That's something that comes out kind of later.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of times, not always.
so yes and no. I mean, and I want to be as transparent as I can. I'm not one to pull punches. I think when you look at me, you're not going to outwardly notice that I'm neurodiverse, but those that know me, like if you see me sitting here and I'm fidgeting or I'm touching my face, or you see maybe my leg shaking, that's all because there's the ability to sit still. I constantly need to be doing something. We used to make fun of the fidget spinners, but the reality was that these fidget spinners were such great benefits for those neurodiverse individuals, because it gave us something to do to steady ourselves and steady our body language. And body language is, when we talk about job seeking, something that gets brought to our attention so much. So this is one of those ways that as a neurodiverse individual, we really wrap our heads around it and are able to compensate a little bit.
Right. And I want to say too, so for neurodiversity, I think that even at the executive level, because it's kind of our focus today, right, that's important. And one of my advisors, in fact, my key advisor on my my technology product that I've rolled out, my anti-discrimination applicant tracking system, he is neurodiverse, and he has autism. He's high functioning, and he is spectacular and interesting. And the way that his mind works is perfect for the executive level, because it sends him in all these wonderful directions and helps him to think very differently and to contribute accordingly. And the way that he communicates, I think, is fabulous too. And it's a very different experience, but it's perfect for this type of experience. And I've known ADHD people that were great at executive type positions, that kind of thing. Jabray, have you had any experience with that type of situation?
Yeah, actually, I have had the opportunity of managing a sales rep that had neurological issues, and again, like you said, having conversations, just understanding, here's how he sees the world or thinks about certain things, allowed me to learn how to communicate in a way to make sure it was effective, but then also allowed me to make him feel comfortable to be himself. Again, I think it comes back down to everything we're talking about is how do we make changes. Change the culture, put people in the seat like Dan, hire Catherines of the world that look at the world differently, get representation in there and start having real good conversations. What you touched on earlier is the lack of sympathy in some cases, but I see a lot of different things, lack of empathy. In most of the cases they know they do have a sympathetic approach, but just a lot of times don't have that care of saying, let me give this person a shot, or let me have the confidence in them. And sometimes it does show a lack of confidence in himself. He got his
This is my ADHD toy that I play with, and I don't mean to interrupt, but it's got this thing I click on the back. I've got buttons to push, things to spin over here. This is like I was never a video game player, but it's got like that video game thing.
That's cool.
So I'm always holding on to this as my way. But Jabray, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to shift the way that you went about and empower your employee. That's not something that always happens. If I'm being very direct, one of the reasons I started working from home about 5 years ago was because I didn't feel comfortable being in the corporate work environment anymore. I felt a lot of my idiosyncrasies were being either looked down upon or were being looked at as a negative. So when I started working from home, it was really predicated on not wanting to be judged by some of those things, and instead be judged by the work that I was producing. So I again want to applaud you for your outlook on that, and I speak from a bit of the community as well.
No, I appreciate it, and I received that. Thank you.
I think that's beautiful. And I think one of the most important things to remember is that because somebody is different than the majority of the population does not make them wrong, right? It doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. One of the things I've corrected people on multiple times is I did a post a while back on LinkedIn, and actually I thought it would get basically no attention, and it ended up being wildly popular. I got hundreds of comments and connections and messages and all of this. And it was about being a bipolar business owner. And I thought everybody would ignore that. But I had so many people reaching out and saying, thank you. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't feel like there's something bad. And people keep treating me like I'm going to snap and like kill everybody, which isn't even a thing. And, you know, and there's just this complete misunderstanding. So I think it's important if someone in your organization comes to you and lets it be known that they have a different neuro condition, if they have a different psychological condition, if they have physical impairment, medical condition, anything like that, to ask question and just say, you know, is there anything that I can do to make working here more comfortable? Are there any adjustments that you need? If they say no, drop it. That's the end of the conversation. If they say yes, then listen to them, see what's going on. For instance, I worked with an ADHD gentleman who liked to have a yoga ball to bounce on all day. It helped make him more productive, and it helped him with it was perfect. And it was so simple. That was a $20 purchase that made his life way better at the job.
Hey, Catherine, but can we bring
yes.
up kind of the elephant in the room? Because I think we need to take a step back to talk about what you're talking about. And that is that if you talk to most job coaches, if you talk to most interviewers, there's still a stigma about admitting that you're neurodiverse in the application process.
Yeah.
So when you have to fill out the ADA forms, which anxiety and depression is covered by, under the ADA, the underlying suggestion is still the presence of unconscious bias. So even if you feel comfortable as a neurodiverse individual, you don't want to, pardon my phrasing, shoot yourself in the foot by fully admitting to it. And the problem that I see, and this is something I've personally encountered, is then I feel like it's a bit of bait and switch, because I'm very good at interviewing. I know how to elaborate on my opinions. I'm not shy. So I tend to do very well on that. But then I get past the interview part and I come on board, and it's like, well, it takes me a little bit longer to learn this, or this is how I adjust. And then, so it feels like a bit of bait and switch, and it winds up creating a negative.
And that is hard. It is hard. And even, and by the way, so I did have a chance to chat with a neurodiverse executive who let me know that same kind of thing, right? When he gets into an organization, it throws them for a loop, because they're like, wait a minute, when we interviewed you, we didn't notice any of this stuff. Now what's going on? And so what he does, and this is just his take, I'm not saying this is the right choice for everybody. He lets people know, basically, once the offer has been accepted, he goes, okay, so just so that you know, here is my reasonable accommodation list. Voila, here you go. This is it. This is what you need to know about me, because it doesn't matter. It's just like how there's always that debate of, do I fill out the EEOC information on the form? Because technically it shouldn't matter, but does it really? You know, it's the same kind of thing. It's the same thing with the gender issue, right? People are going, well, if I want to be called they or them or anything like that, do I put that? Do I not put that? Am I going to be discriminated against? My personal opinion is I would like to see companies not ask for that information until after an offer has been made, or to send that information behind an application and have it masked so that none of the hiring team can see it until after a hire is made, because frankly, it does throw everything off. It just does, whether people mean for it to or not, right? Biases are natural, that they're there to protect us, but they also can cause harm if we don't check them. So that's my personal opinion on what I would like to see on the grand scheme of things. But for day-to-day, and what I would do if I was ever back in the job search, is exactly what my friend did. And he said, You just let them know afterwards, this is my reasonable accommodation, because it doesn't matter.
And that's the thing. I made a very conscious, when I, after the pandemic hit and I separated from my last position because of the pandemic, I made a very conscious effort or decision. When I came on LinkedIn, I said, okay, my first post I'm going to talk about neurodiversity. I'm tired of being in this situation where it feels like this bait and switch mentality. So if I'm going to an organization, they're hiring me, I don't want those that are going to have that unconscious bias. So I'd rather admit it, have them know what they're getting. And if that eliminates me from certain positions, so be it. I wouldn't like those positions in the long term anyway. So, and here's the reality. As neurodiverse individuals, and this is where I get really passionate, you mentioned that, so there's a huge contingent of neurodiverse individuals that are entrepreneurs. And one of the reasons that is, and I don't know the exact term for this, we have an ability to see 7 steps ahead. So where people wouldn't necessarily find commonality or connections between two things that we say, and sometimes what we may say may come across as off or weird, which it's not. It's really because we have this way of thinking that, okay, here's where we're starting. Here's second, third, fourth, fifth. We're already thinking about 7 steps ahead. And that's something that I've dealt with my entire life in the way that I make connections. But it's one of those things, it's this glorious thing that we're able to do. So why hide it?
Right.
Like, why hide it?
That's how I feel. I like with my bipolar disorder. I'm like, when I have I can handle my depression phases fine. And when I hit that mania, I'm a superhero. Nobody is more amazing than I am when I hit those mania phases. And it's incredible. And I don't feel ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed by it. It's something I'm very comfortable talking about and just living in. And I think that's important. And I think it's the same for all types of diversity. Just don't be embarrassed, that you're a minority, or that you have a different culture, or that you have a different partner, or that that you're older, whatever it is. Don't be embarrassed by it. And the more and more that people just stand up and go, nope, this is me, take it or leave it, I think that will make a difference. What do you think, Jabray?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that a lot of people are becoming more confident in themselves and what they know they bring to the table. And again, when you perform in your job, I would tell most people, perform in your job, show what you can do, because eventually it's going to become pretty blatant if they start not hiring you over people that you clearly can see are not as equipped to do the position as you.
Right.
And your numbers can speak for it, your resume can speak for it. So I always say start there, because when you go for the job, be qualified for it. And then to your point, it's different now. This is who I am. Here is, how I work best. Here are the accommodations I need to be the successful person or worker that you're asking me to be in order to hit those, to hit the targets that you want. And I can honestly say, when I look at a team that's not diverse, or when I see things like that, it really is a reflection of shows, maybe, I'm not saying for everyone, but shows like a little insecurity and confidence to be able to.
That's what I see too.
Somebody else to success. Like I purposely like the diverse one, because me as a Black male, I could tell you, and a Black leader, one big thing that has come up with me and other executives, you don't want to come in and black it up too soon.
I don't mean to laugh. Like, I feel like
no,
I'm sorry.
We're having a transparent conversation.
I'm sorry. I don't think anyone on the history of the show has said black it up.
What I mean by that is it's a very candid conversation, that has had amongst the community of other Black leaders and executives, because there is the stigma of, okay, when you come in, you may not want your first hire to be a Black person, or you may want to come in and say, look, let me show that I can lead somebody that does look different than me. And a lot of times, a lot of white executives don't have that same stigma on them. They can come and hire somebody that looks exactly like them and have 5 white male employees, and it's considered being a great team.
Do you know what's funny? I have seen that
conversation. That's a real conversation of when people, they tend to hire people that either look like them. They hire people that they can feel more comfortable around, rather than building a team that'll be best for the organizations, where even though there may be a difference, you just learn to manage past it. And you do that by having the executive leadership team and true training programs in place. Like one thing I never would have thought about the term of, neodiverse, but for you,
Right.
yes, I have had someone like that. And it'll be very beneficial for leadership to go through training to even see the signs of somebody that may be a little neodiverse, because they may not want to come out and just say, this is what's going on. But if you notice, maybe something, I will go to Dan and ask, is that something you think would be helpful for leadership to those type of trainings? Or is that something that is a little sensitive to somebody, a part of the neodiverse community?
So I need to interject, and I know what you meant by it, but I feel as a neurodiverse individual, I need to clarify. There is no one same person that is neurodiverse. Each of us have our own strengths and weaknesses. And I know that you didn't mean anything by that. I just want to point that out because in our community, it's so important to make sure that and just like in the Black community, transparent conversation, that we're not all looked at as being that same person and dealing with those same stereotypes. Each one of us is different. So I want to make sure that I put that on
it's notice. True.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And so I think, but to your point, Jabray, I think it would be appropriate to teach executive leadership and people that are in charge of hiring and people that are in charge of promotions and all that or training, whatever, to look at a situation and go, okay, I do see something different. I'm going to ask this person, hey, is this effective for you? Do we need to change styles? And that really works for everything. That can work for a pregnant woman. That can work for someone who has rheumatoid arthritis. That can work for all different kinds of things. If you're looking at something and you see that somebody is for any reason just not quite clicking with the environment or clicking with the way things are currently running, stop and have a conversation with your people, folks. This is very, very basic. And by the way, nobody else's situation is your business. They're not entitled, you are not entitled to know their neurodiversity or their sexual preference or their religion, anything else. You're not entitled to that, but they don't have to share that with you. But if they ask for a reasonable accommodation, just give it to them. If the bouncy ball thing or a different headset, like for me, I can't hear squat. I am hearing impaired, not deaf, but hearing impaired. So there are certain types of headsets that work better for me. I've had to bring that up to companies before. That's just how it works. Just get out there and have those conversations with people. But I also want to circle back to something else that you said, Jabray, in that this, when you said, you don't necessarily want to black it up right away, which is still just stuck in my head. That's going to be stuck in my head all day. But I see so many ridiculous instances of people being told something about their hair or their dress. And I've had employees in the Muslim community that received a lot of flack. I have had African American, like people from Africa, that came and dressed differently, different hair, that type of thing than what people here are used to, that received a lot of flack. As long as someone comes to work clean, because we don't want smelly people in the workplace, and we, and dressed appropriately, meaning like body parts covered, that's the end of the discussion. You need to be, in fact, I just had a conversation about this morning. You don't need to tell people what their hair needs to look like. Frankly, let's even just go ahead and say it, folks. Who cares if somebody has blue hair? Who cares? How does that ever affect anything else going on with them? That's just stupid. That's a stupid thing to focus on. Just don't. But but look at, it doesn't matter if someone wants to have an afro or dreadlocks or, I don't know, purple hair, blue hair, piercings, whatever. Now I can understand. And, I understand in certain positions, like you don't want piercings on the face. There might be a reason for that. I understand that in certain types of positions, like medical, you can't have acrylic nails, things like that. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about just judging people on their appearance and telling them how they need to wear their hair and all that. That can actually really create a prejudice, and it can really show, and you may not mean it that way, but what you may be telling someone by telling them, hey, you can't wear your hair in dreadlocks is, I don't appreciate your heritage. I don't appreciate your background. I don't appreciate your culture. And you need to stop and you need to look more like me and do more like me. And that's gross.
It is.
At least I think it is. I think that's gross. I was told I had to tell an employee something like that once, and I did it, and I've always regretted it. And I was like, ugh, this is so gross.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make you feel good when you work for an organization like that. And to your point, there is a level of professionalism that I think every organization is going to want. But when you're talking about self-expression, as long as that person is doing their job, as long as that person is not causing a distraction or stopping them from being that effective employee, to your point, why is that an issue?
Right.
And it's something that does come up. I know the hair issue a lot more for a lot of Black women. I know a lot of Black men have dreadlocks, but as far as Black women in corporate America, because they have a totally different plight than I do.
Right.
For being a woman and being an African American, so they have different issues that that they deal with. That is extremely important in their roles that I can't speak to and won't pretend to, but I do want to address it and make sure that it's understood. That is a real thing in corporate America. And it goes back to starting with the culture. It goes back to having conversations like this. It goes back to people like Dan and myself and you speaking up and saying, hey, this is not right, because we deserve to be in those positions of, I don't even like the word of power, of influence, to be able to put people in place based upon their candidacy of how well they can do the job, not based upon the biases of America that we just see. And the media, biases come in. It's a natural thing.
Yes, all of that.
But I think part of being a leader is being able to level bubbles and come in with a level head, have the situational awareness, the emotional intelligence to make a decision based upon the best for the company and not based upon personal references.
100%.
I have to say, Jabre, I didn't know you before this. I may be your biggest fan now. I love having these conversations. And one thing about me that, if you didn't know before, is one of the platforms I stand on, and I'm very much an advocate for, is women's empowerment. And there's two reasons for this. One is because I have twin girls, and I'm tired of thinking to myself, can I justifiably tell them they could be anything when they grow up in a society that they really can't?
Yeah.
And then the second is, my wife is a feminist. She's my hero. She, having twins, she came into a work environment where they didn't have a maternity room set up for her to breastfeed. And that's a right. That's not a could you, should you, would you. That is a fundamental right. And I do not want to get too deep down this rabbit hole, but these are what we're talking about they're not accommodations.
Yeah, it's just common. And by the way, we're super behind on that in the US. That's common in Europe and other countries and other continents and other countries.
It's law. Common. It's a law that people aren't abiding by.
It's crazy.
And
anyway, whole other subject on that. That's a whole other
about this. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but no, I know what you mean. And it is frustrating. And by the way, yes, you should tell your daughters that they can be anything. You know why? Because that's how it changes. Yeah. The more men, for instance, my grandfather raised 4 daughters in the 50s and 60s. And he looked at them and said, you could do anything. Never let a man tell you different. That was his message to them. You know what? He has phenomenal daughters who have all had all various degrees of success, including my mother, who is an executive in the biggest healthcare system in North Texas. And they're phenomenal, interesting women. 2 of them have kids, 2 don't, because that's another thing he told. You don't have to. Be a person, have your own thing going on. Yeah. So absolutely tell them that. And I want to kind of throw out there too, because this is something that's big for me, is when you're listening to people and you start learning and you start growing, share that growth. Speak up, guys. Yeah. And that's to everybody. I don't, whatever side, whatever gender or orientation or religion or gender, I said gender already, or race or whatever age group, share that growth, share that knowledge, and stand up. Don't take it. When you see injustice, say F that. Hell no, it's not going to go on in my presence. The 1 or 2, actually 2 times I can ever think of that I didn't speak up when I should have, I'm horribly ashamed of it, and it will never happen again. Loud and proud, stand up and go, nope, nope, nope. and start insisting that your companies do better. Start insisting that they have opportunities to a real advancement for non-white males. Because when 92% of Fortune 500 CEOs are white men, and they only make up 35% of the population in the US, that's stupid.
Yeah.
It's stupid and it's wrong. And we have a problem. I'm sorry, Dan, what were you going to say?
No, it's okay. So part of my neurodiversity is when I get on a thought track, sometimes I force it out when I shouldn't.
Right.
So I apologize.
No, you're okay.
I wanted to bring it back a little bit, and I don't want to give I wouldn't call this a plug, but I was turned on to something as we talk about neurodiversity. And I'm so glad I did. And I didn't know about this organization before. They're on LinkedIn. They're called Exceptional Minds. And what they do is they're academy and so so they're an academy and studio that they teach those on the autism spectrum for careers in digital arts and animation. And it's such an exceptional group. Like, there's times and I'm a content creator on LinkedIn. I post twice a day, 7 days a week. And there's times where as a content creator, you're like, okay, I'm going to do something and that's that. Then there's times you can make a difference.
Right.
These people are a prime example of how you can make a powerful difference and set people up for success. Because whether you're Black, whether you're white, whether you're gay, whether you're on the autism spectrum, each one of us has a voice, and each one of us has a place, and each one of us has a right job for us. And it's a matter of finding what that is and putting ourselves in that position, which is why I tell job seekers, do not lose hope. What is meant for you is going to be right for you.
100%. And I want to thank you for being with us, Dan. We have to start closing out the show now. I want to keep talking to both of you, but we can't. We all have lives. But thank you so very much, Dan, for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. And guys, I've dropped Dan's link down to his LinkedIn down in the comments. Please connect with him, message him. He will reach out to you. He's very responsive. Check out his content. It's wonderful. It's encouraging. Thank you so much, Dan, for being with us today.
Thank you, Dan. Nice to meet you.